Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters.
Hello there. So I'm Autumn Bear, and I'm located in Park City, Utah. I've been in this beautiful and wonderful space in a place that I really think has allowed me to grow exponentially. So my story, as I go into this, so I'm a practitioner of Chinese medicine, and the way that I found my way into this practice was really truly a personal story. I was in my youth really quite sick, nothing that was ever death, inducing or severe, but always things that were challenging and causing me a lot of problems. And I managed and worked through them, but always it was never important to anyone that I was having these problems, because they weren't something that was going to need either major medication um, or a major intervention. So fast forward, I'm in my 20s, and I had been traveling abroad and had gotten very sick, and I came home and I started to see physicians, and everybody said to me, "Oh, you're fine, you're very healthy, there's nothing wrong with you." And they would kind of just send me on my way, and my condition would deteriorate, and I would have more pain, and I would be sicker, and things would continue, and I would go back to the doctor, and they would really just kind of say to me, "No, no, you're fine, you're young, you're totally okay, you're fit, you're an athlete," etc. And as I went through, I finally found a doctor who had asked me, "What um have you ever had any scans?" And I said, "Well, no, no one's ever given me scans." And she said, "Well, you know what? Let's do a couple of things." So lo and behold, they do some scans, and they find out that I have tremendous gallstones that are the size of golf balls, and I'm in critical care at this point because it's near rupture. So they send me to go see the surgeon. I have to have emergency surgery. And I say to the surgeon, I say, "Well, what could cause something like this to happen? I really, there's no reason for this to happen, but here we are." And he looks at me and he says to me, "It's just bad luck." And in that moment, that there was almost like a light that went off for me, because it became very clear to me that I was going to be the one that was going to care most about my health. And I was going to be the one that was going to have to become my biggest advocate and be able to learn and understand and speak for myself, and also take some ownership over my health. And that's really what I found to be what became my life mission: is how do I help other people stop giving their health to other people who are never going to truly understand what each and every person is going through, and how do we take back that power for ourselves so that we can truly understand how to make the choices that are important for our lives, for our health, and how we advocate in the medical system when our needs are really important. And I've done a ton of research and a tremendous amount of work clinically. I've spent the last 30 years dedicated to health and wellness. I have a a private practice, so I see thousands of patients. And what's really important for me, and I see it all the time, is that, in many cases, just like mine, a woman will go in to a doctor and she says, listen, something is really not right. And instead of really diving into those issues, many women are either turned away or misdiagnosed. And in fact, I just recently did some research, and the research was basically saying that women are 20 to 50% more likely to be misdiagnosed than men, which is a very, very high percentage, and especially when it looks at heart disease and other things like that. So, what can we do for our health? I want to say there are three things that I really want to give to anyone who is listening, and three things that I think are really important to understanding how we get to take back our health, right? How we get to empower ourselves to make great choices. And the first thing I want to say is we need to be curious, right? The major medical systems that we encounter, they're not perfect. And really, they're going to try to give us a one size fits all. If it's going to fit into this category, then we're going to get a medication, and that's kind of it. It doesn't give us a lot of tools to be able to then try to actually heal ourselves and address the problem. So how can we do that? So my recommendation is be curious. There are so many things out there that are far beyond the major medical system. Obviously, I'm not saying you shouldn't go to the doctor. Of course you go to the doctor. But in tandem with the medical system, be curious about other things that can really help you find wellness. Find things like acupuncture, herbs, homeopathy, Feldenkrais method. There's going to be a whole host of things out there that can work in tandem with the major medical system that can then teach you tools that are going to give you the ability to make amazing choices. The second thing that I would actually say is it can be a little scary to try new things, and especially when they're outside of the major medical systems. It's okay. Most of the ways in which we're going to explore are actually going to be a little challenging. We might be a little afraid. I get people that come in to see me all the time that are afraid of needles. A lot of times it is far scarier in your mind than it is in reality. But I think you should push through that fear anyway. Find different things that you have never tried and try them. It's something that you don't have to do it forever. You're not married to it, but it is something you should try, something that you've never tried, because the chances are you're going to gain some kind of knowledge from that experience. Now, every practitioner is not going to be the right fit, and that's okay. But part of this is also, and this goes to my number 3, part of this is also to just keep at it. Health is not a linear experience. Wellness is not a linear experience. It can be a little messy. There's a lot of ups and downs. There can be things that take more time than we would like. If there's a chronic condition that you're managing, there's a really good chance that it's going to take a little time for that system, that new system that you're going to try to give you those tools. It might take a little unraveling, and it's not going to happen overnight. Be persistent. A lot of the time, people come in, especially when we're looking at alternative medicines or we're looking at things outside the medical system, and they want a quick fix. There is no quick fix to health. There are things that we have to do that's either we're making choices on a daily basis to influence our health, and that is what we are essentially using as our savings account, right? What we're going to cash in later. Or we're going to try to manage something that we're moving through, a difficulty. And if that's really the case, then what we really want to do is allow it to have that time that it's going to need in order to take place. So none of it's going to happen overnight. Healing takes time, and it takes dedication, and it requires a lot of work. And I always say to people, there's no such thing as free lunch, right? We can't just take something and it makes everything go away. We have to participate in our health. Participation is the key to everything that we are doing. And the more we are tuned into ourselves, and the more we participate in our own lives in making those decisions that are going to help us on a daily basis, the better off we will be, because then it opens the gate for great conversations with our doctors, and not just being lectured to or handed something down. We can actually ask those educated questions that are really important for people, so that you're really focusing on creating a team, right? And that's really what it's about. Create your health team. Be curious. Push through something that you're not sure about, and push through that fear and try it anyway, and give it time, right? Those things are going to be really important. But also, I think it's really important for people to look at their health as a team event, right? This isn't something, they're not going to fix it for you. The chances are you're going to fix your own health by making those daily choices, little bits at a time, that are going to give you something that's going to be a great longevity later in life. So the quick fixes are never the ones that are going to really give you that long standing, beautiful life that you're looking for, both the health span and the lifespan married together. So it's really important for us to continue to do those types of things for ourselves, so that we know that as things may or may not go out of alignment, then we already know, right? These are the choices I'm making. This is, here's the food I'm eating. This is the exercise I'm doing. This is how my body feels on a regular basis. When you're tuned in, then these are the things that we already know before we go in looking for other help for our health.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming online and sharing your story with our community today. It sounds like you've been on an incredible journey to sort out your own health, do your research, and now you're empowering so many other people with all of these alternative health modalities that we really need to know about. So, when you look back, what was the defining moment that set you on the path of healing?
I think the defining moment that happened for me, and it happens for a lot of people, is that I found myself um, in a bit of a health crisis, and that health crisis is what led me to seek help. But the help that I was seeking just fell shy of what I needed. And it was
Mhm.
that moment where it was that crisis, and not getting what I needed helped me to understand that was my job, right? Like that was going to be what I was going to set forward for myself, and then to help others behind me.
Wow. Now, how did it feel to be dismissed by doctors at such a young age? And what did that experience teach you about trust in the medical system?
That's a really good question. I feel like, you know, I feel like for a lot of women, it doesn't really matter what stage they're in. I think being dismissed is a really common theme in the medical community for women. Um, and it's really unfortunate, because women tend to take their health much more seriously. They tend to seek advice and help much earlier. They try to
Mhm.
catch things well before they have become a crisis. But when they
Yes.
are passed down the medical system and pushed off, women end up then finding themselves in crisis, and then the medical interventions that they're getting are not nearly what then they become in crisis, and then they're life-saving, right? And that's not where we want to be.
No.
um yeah, like, and so for me, it was really important, you know of course, it was one of those things that I found value in it. So as much as I was disappointed by that experience, I also found value in it, and realized that I do have to participate. Right? That's the part that a lot of people don't want to see things. They don't want to address it unless it's broken. But health
Mhm.
doesn't really work that way.
No, no. Oh, man. Now, you say that your body was whispering before it screamed.
Hmm.
What were those whispers trying to tell you?
You know, I think the whispers were really the continued inspiration for me to continue seeking help. Right? So if someone had said to me, "Oh, you're fine," and then I was feeling fine, I probably wouldn't have pursued it further until it was an absolute crisis. Um, and it ended up being a crisis anyway. But those whispers continued to say to me, "Listen, something is not right." And I was fortunate enough to continue to listen, and not everybody does, right? And that's, I think, an important theme, is that when your body whispers, we need to listen to the whispers just as much as the screams.
Hmm. Yeah, not wait until the screams as well.
No, no screaming.
Then, then it's normally too late.
Yeah.
So, how did your journey with undiagnosed celiac disease shape your understanding of the mind body connection?
Well, so I guess I'm a little bit biased in the mind body connection space because
Mm,
as a practitioner of Chinese medicine, we don't really separate the mind, the body, or the spirit. Those are things that are all part of us and all part of us together. We can't just say our digestive system is by itself. And we
yeah.
can't just say that our, mental emotional space is its unique thing. They are all connected. And I think my journey in first my physical body, but then the pursuit, because my diagnosis of celiac, which I may not have mentioned as I was speaking earlier, is so the gallstones were the initial onset of when things started to really go terribly wrong. It took another 15 years for me to find that diagnosis, and it was me that walked into the doctor and said, I think you need to test me for celiac. And I had to really fight. I had to fight for
Crazy.
15 more years before I got that diagnosis. And so the emotional stamina, the emotional toll that it takes, it was real. And it took me quite a while to heal from it. And I don't think we want to dismiss the emotional impact of disease. We don't want to dismiss the physical pain affects our emotional space. And we
Mm,
certainly don't want to dismiss how our spiritual connection, both with ourselves and whatever elements that we consider to be important for us, whether it's the practice of yoga, whether it's a belief in God, all of those pieces of ourself, our mind, our emotions, and our body are helping us drive and navigate this world. We have to listen to all of them collectively.
yeah, it's not just one thing.
Ever.
Now, what did you learn about resilience and intuition through your own healing journey?
Resilience is something, I think resilience is something that we find within ourselves in all different big large moments that happen to us in life, and life doesn't discriminate. We all have these big pieces, and not everybody has health issues, not
Mm,
everybody has marriage issues or money issues, but there is always something that
yeah.
happens for
Mhm.
each of us. And it's that inner fortitude to make sure that we breathe through those big moments and we find the people that are there to help us through. We're not
Yeah.
meant to do this by ourselves. We're here, I mean, we are collectively connected with one another. And it is really about how we find our community and we
Yeah.
seek out the people who have the tools to actually help us so that we can then learn to help ourselves. And so that's, I think, a really important factor in that.
Yeah, and you mentioned community. It's so important to know that you're not alone.
Mhm.
A lot of times when we're going through our health challenges, it feels very isolating.
Right.
But when you find community and people who can be supportive on that journey, I think that goes a long way towards your healing as well.
Absolutely.
So, what drew you to Chinese medicine and how did it change your perspective on Western healthcare?
So right after I had surgery for to have my gallbladder removed, a friend
Yes.
of the family, and this is in the early 90s, when the West was just discovering Chinese medicine. Believe it or not, it's a 5,000-year-old medicine, but in the United States, it wasn't even legalized until 1996, which is like it's mind blowing to me.
It's so
So yeah,
crazy.
it really is. So in the early 90s, we had a good friend of ours was very progressive. And he said to me, he said, you should try acupuncture. And at that juncture, I thought, well, A, I'll try anything once, and B, I've got nothing to lose, right? And
Mm,
I became a patient for 10 years. It was something that I just absolutely fell in love with. And I was always into health and I had studied other aspects of health. Um,
mhm,
and then I had moved to New York City and I had been there for a different career. And I really woke up one morning and I thought, I really want to figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of my career. And Chinese medicine had always been such a backbone for me because it gave me the tools that I needed to navigate both my body and my healing process. And
mm,
it became a natural fit for me. And I found um, this Taoist master in New York City who's an 88th generation practitioner. And the history was so profound that I couldn't imagine doing anything else at that point.
And that's just amazing. And it's interesting when they say that when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like you were ready for a breakthrough and the timing of everything was just so perfect.
Yeah.
So can you share a story of a patient who reminded you why this work matters?
Oh, I have so many beautiful patients, and I really feel so grateful to them because they teach me and show me every day how valuable this work is. One of the things that I do a lot of work on now is I do a lot of work with post-traumatic brain trauma. And something that happens with post-traumatic brain trauma is that the autonomic nervous system can get really unraveled, and it's like it's literally attached to every system. It's attached to your sleep cycles, your menstrual cycles, your digestive system, your heart rhythms. So I had a
Yes.
patient who came in when I first started seeing her, and she had dysautonomia, which is what they call it. She had dysautonomia for over 10 years, and she had enough energy to either pick her kids up from school or go to Walmart and do some sort of a shop. She could not do both, and she couldn't do both in the same day. She could nearly do those two things back to back in tandem. And we started doing a lot of work together, and it took us about a year,
Right.
but around that year mark, she was doing amazingly. I mean, her energy was amazing. She was, living her life and volunteering at school and picking up her kids and doing projects. And, she still had ups and downs, but those waves, instead of being huge dips and valleys, became these kind of like small little undulations. And
Right.
I asked her and I said, "What do you want to do? Like, what's your goal?" And she said, "Well, I've always wanted to run." And I was like, "Okay." And she's like, "But, I don't know." So I said, "Well, you know what? Let's start small." And so she started
Mhm.
her running. And the last I saw her, which was about a year ago, um, and she was running approximately, I guess it was like 5 miles every other day. In addition to being able to care for her kids, drive places that she couldn't drive before because she wasn't able. She was a huge migraine sufferer, and she went from 4 migraines a week to probably about maybe 2 or 3 a month. So it was, and
Right.
so, she got her life back, and that
Yeah.
matters. Yeah, that matters.
That is huge. That is
Mhm.
absolutely huge.
Yeah.
So, what does it truly mean to become your own advocate in a world that profits from our disempowerment?
That's a great question. I think as an advocacy doesn't mean that we have to fight. And I think there's a really important distinction between that. Advocacy is about being involved. It's
Yeah.
about looking at how you understand yourself, but also the ownership that you take over your own body and your own choices. When we
Yeah.
look at being an advocate, we first have to take responsibility for all the choices that we make and say, am I eating the way that I know that I should be to maximize my health? Am I
Mm.
getting that sleep? Am I doing right? So all that list of things, we all know them. Am I not smoking? Am I, so on and so forth. So I think first it comes from understanding that we have to own part of the equation.
Yeah.
And then the other part of advocacy is really about the conversations that we have. Instead of asking someone, "Can you fix me?" The questions that we need to ask are, what's going on here? And what are ways that I can improve my health through diet and lifestyle? And if you don't have the answers for that, how can you help me find the right people that I can have a
Mhm.
conversation with? And if they don't give you the answer that you're looking for, then you have to continue, ask other people. Listen, I've got this thing and I really want to get to the bottom of it. Do you know anyone that has ever experienced this? Because the chances are yes. And it's really important that the advocacy isn't that you're just waiting for one person to fix your problems. It's that you are engaging in dialogue with people that are going to help you find the right tools.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah, that makes such a difference. So you talk about integration and not competition between medical systems. What might that look like in the future, do you think?
I think there's a beautiful place for all of these different types of medicine in
Mm,
our lives. And I'm not, I am a huge advocate of Western medicine. I call it Western medicine. I think they do a magnificent job in research and development. I do think that there are amazing pharmaceuticals that are out there that are necessary to help save people's lives. I'm not a either or kind of a girl. Um,
mm,
and I think surgeries have come like huge distances in what they're capable of doing for, replacements and open heart surgeries and how they're,
mm.
all of those things are amazing. But when it comes to long term palliative care, the Western model is not so great. And that's where they're profiting on people taking a lot of pharmaceuticals, but not really being involved in their own health.
Yeah,
So that's really where I start to see the integration piece being so important and where that gap can be bridged. Using Chinese medicine or using integrative nutrition or using different elements of physical therapy or Feldenkrais method or, cranial sacral work. Those are all elements of how we can manage our day-to-day lives and our overall health. That's
yeah.
the long term. That's the stuff we do on the in-between spaces. If you have a
Mm,
crisis, you use the Western medical model to help you get through that crisis. But please
yeah.
don't expect them to help you find the tools to keep good care of yourself over time.
Oh my gosh. Now, how can people begin to trust their own bodies after years of feeling unheard and undiagnosed? You start doubting yourself when
Mhm.
what you're bringing to people's attention
Right.
isn't being heard.
Yeah. I think that's a really tough one because it's not like people aren't trying, right? And that is the important aspect is, finding the right practitioners that are going to have those dialogues and conversations is important. That's important. And they do exist. Know that they exist. I also think it's important to understand no matter where you are in your health journey, you can always heal. There are
Mm,
no incurable diseases. There are only incurable people. So, so it's
mm,
it's a lot of it has to do with mindset. A lot of it
yeah.
has to
Mm,
do with understanding that our bodies are very powerful, and no matter how long you've been in something, there's always a space for change. We just have to find the right thing that can help us flip that switch to create that change.
oh my gosh. Now, if you could prescribe just 3 steps to start a healing journey, what would they be?
I would I think I would first ask your friends, have you tried acupuncture? Have you tried herbs? You would be surprised at how many people, I mean, most very close friends are going to be like, oh, I've got this person over downtown that I love and they're amazing and I swear by them. It's really valuable, when we talk about that community piece, to sometimes just say, I'm curious about this. Has anybody ever had experience? Because many times we can get great recommendations from other people who have walked that path before us. And I think
Yeah,
that has a lot of great value, especially if you don't have a lot of trust or you're not sure, you're very
yeah,
trepidatious about trying new things. I really think you should ask because you'd be surprised. And then I think you should take those recommendations and then try it, right? I think there's something very valuable, not just about getting the information, but take that leap of faith. Take
yeah,
that, just like give it a go. What's going to happen? You might spend a little time and money trying something new. And if you don't like it, that's okay too, right? And
it's
I think that's really valuable. And then I think, what's really important is to really understand that we you know, we can heal. And I think it's really important for people to understand that we are not limited. And sometimes when people are told, you know, like, well, this is just how it is, I think it's the persistence that we're able
Mhm.
to capture to understand we are capable of healing, but you can't keep doing the same things and expecting different results. And I think
Results.
that's really valuable. Yeah.
That is a crucial lesson in anything really in life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Oh
absolutely.
my gosh. So let's end our interview with two more questions. If I could teleport you back to the very beginning to meet that younger woman who was going through these health challenges, knowing something wasn't quite right, not able to explain it, but just you had a knowing. Just in case there's somebody who's listening to us right now who is going through something similar, feels something is off but can't put words to it. If you went back and gave yourself three nuggets of wisdom based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those three nuggets of wisdom be?
I would say, you know, again, be persistent with, you know, the conversation. You know yourself the best. If something doesn't feel right, then you pursue it and you listen to those whispers before they become screams. I think that's a really important thing. Um, Now, my younger self didn't have internet, so I think I think that's a big factor in where we are. But do your research. We don't have to be experts, but we can do some research and find who's who's um, a great person in this specialty. Who can I talk to? And don't be afraid of a wait list. If there is someone that's really excellent at their job and they have a wait list, put yourself on the wait list. Don't be discouraged and say, "Oh, that person, you know, is it's too long," right? Because the chances are that time's going to pass quite quickly, and it's far better to have a conversation with someone who's really great at their job than it is to have a quick conversation with someone who isn't, right? And so those would be probably the three things that I would say is, you know, be persistent, do your research, at least have a good understanding and conversation, and seek out those people who are experts that might be able to guide you in the right direction, and then pursue it.
I love it. The next question is futuristic, and I'm going to teleport you into the future, and we are going to go and talk to the 90-year-old you. And she's sitting in her rocking chair, surrounded by her family, her children, grandchildren, dogs, cats, whoever's with you at the end. If I could teleport you into the future to meet this wise woman who has led you up until this point, what will you say to her when you finally meet her?
I will say to her that the secret to life is that you just keep moving. That's it. I think that it's really important to understand that there's going to be dips and valleys. You know, I studied health and that is my main focus. But, you know, and so I see people day in and day out, but what I do understand and what I understand about longevity and what I understand about all life that I've seen it so far is that the secret is that you just keep moving.
Absolutely love that. Beautiful. Autumn, thank you so much for coming online and sharing your story. You're empowering so many women to advocate for themselves, to learn their bodies, and to find alternatives. There's a lot of alternative medical treatments out there that we don't know about. Thank you for bringing this to the fore. Now, I have your website at the bottom of the screen. Is there any other way that people can contact you?
I mean, my website is really the best way. I think that is, you know, the space that I am the most. I have some upcoming projects, and I'll be sure to link those to my website when those are up and running in the next few months.
Fantastic. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We're a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, but most importantly, to help take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So if you are a woman who's experiencing some kind of a health challenge, things aren't making sense, watch this podcast again. There were some beautiful gems on how to navigate this space. Reach out, get support from people like Autumn. Be in a community of other people who've experienced what you've gone through so you don't feel like you're alone. So if you do know somebody who is going through a challenge, please share this podcast, help somebody else get the help that they need. I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody, when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And thanks again, Autumn, for this amazing interview.
Thank you.
Bye for now, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story. Thank you so